to Sports Connection. I'm Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director, and I'm here with my co-host. This is Zoom Virtual Sports Connection number 3. So Mr. Mathews is actually alone right now, but he wanted to show that he is definitely pro-mask. He's got his TSSAA State Championship mask on, which, by the way, Tate, they did a pretty good job with those, didn't they?
I think they did a great job of them. I like the little cinches on the back and cover up your face very well. And supporting the Blue Cross Bowl, they had plenty to hand out. And I thought that by far our coaching staffs, Summit and Brentwood, did the best job of wearing their masks in the state championship games. So I wanted to support that as well.
Well, it's easy to be critical. I think what happens is, you can get a picture that is a point in time, or you can see something on TV that's at a point in time, and sometimes it doesn't always tell the total story. So, for example, maybe coach has his mask down, he's yelling something to the sideline, but there's really no one around him. We haven't been perfect in those cases, but I'll say, like you said, Tate, I think we've done a pretty darn good job, and the proof is in the pudding. We got through our 5th season, 5 team state championships, 4 runners-up, and 1 individual state champion. Hey, listen, Tate, in WCS, it just means more.
Yeah, without a doubt. 1 conference, 1 goal means more. Next level. How many is that? That's how many state championship appearances? Was that 9? Is that what you said?
Yeah, so that's 9 appearances, and we've only had 5 sports.
I don't know that anybody's even has a third of that, a fourth of that. So, yeah, I'm going to take my mask off now.
Yeah, please do. It's very distracting since you don't need to. He's actually alone right now, but I do appreciate the thought and providing the examples and all those kind of things. Yeah. Hey, before we talk about those state championship games, district basketball underway. I think it's going to be a pretty wide open league in the girls and boys side, but maybe particularly the boys. Page girls, they come out 2-0 after 1 week. Brentwood 1-0, and then Ravenwood with Coach James, they have victories over Independence and Franklin. They also sit at 2-0. On the boys side, there was a big matchup, Franklin hosting Brentwood. Franklin gets that win. I think a lot of folks, the pundits out there, are saying that in particular, on the boys' side, those are the 2 favorites. But then what happens? Ravenwood turns right back around. They beat Franklin without the services of really their best player. Mr. English there for Ravenwood didn't play, so that's a big win. Page defeats Centennial, but then Independence turns around and beats Page. So I think, in particular, on that boys' side, if you couldn't understand anything I just said, I certainly can appreciate that. But here's what it means, viewers and Tate Mathews. It is wide open.
I agree. And we talked about it this weekend. I think if there's a dark horse, and I know they don't want to use the word dark horse, but I think on the boys' side, I think it's Ravenwood. I think they got a lot of the pieces. They've got guard play. They've got big man play. They can run the court a little bit. And I think Coach Whitlock feels good about this team. I thought they were very impressive in the games that I saw over Christmas. So, boys' side, it looks like it's going to be a dog fight. Really glad to see that, and it's going to be interesting to see who those 4 are that come out of it. The girls' side, you were talking about Coach James and Ravenwood, Reagan Grimes putting up big points. So I think they feel like they've got something to say in the district race as well.
Well, and you know how we are as coaches. Coach Whitlock, who's a guy that I've known probably as long as anyone in this district, we talked after the Franklin game. He said, "Hey, by the way, I used you as part of my motivation before the game." I said, "Oh, you did?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Hey, team, Coach Joins, who's a friend of mine, said, I think you guys have a shot to maybe finish 3rd in the league." And I was saying that as like a positive thing. And he said he introduced that to his team, and they did not take a liking to that. Now, in my defense, did I know that Mr. Clifford that moved in from California and some other people were going to contribute the way they did? No, I didn't. So I think if we have to reassess after a few games, certainly Ravenwood is in the mix. But I thought that was neat that, 1, that Coach Whitlock did that, and 2, that he admitted he did it. And I had no issues with it at all. Whatever it takes to get your team going.
That's right. Master motivator. Hey, and you mentioned Mr. Clifford. He's a big reason why I think Ravenwood is going to be a force to be reckoned with. He's a big guy, but he can run the full floor. He can dribble. He's a nice piece that Coach Whitlock added to the Raptors. It's going to be fun to watch. You're right.
It is. Wrestling, a lot of duels going on right now. One in particular I wanted to mention, Page, and I know they're a larger class, but still, I think this is pretty big. They got a 36-30 win over Fairview. That's a nice win for Coach Gray and Page. Again, even though Fairview smaller class, but let's face it. Remember last year, Fairview wrestled Brentwood in a duel, and they either won by a small margin or lost by a small margin. The point is, doesn't matter. When you wrestle Fairview, that is a legit opponent. So that was a big win for Coach Gray and Page.
Yeah, especially this early on in the season. I know he was very happy with that, and that's one that they can build on heading into Christmas and then coming into the meat of the season come January.
Hey, something else I want to mention before we talk about these state championship games, because certainly we want to spend a lot of time doing that. Just to the viewers out there knowing, because there's all kinds of rumors. TSSAA is going to shut it down as soon as football's over. We're going to shut it down as soon as football's over. Listen, we are going to try to continue, and TSSAA has made that pretty obvious too. We're going to try to continue with sports. There's no plans to shut anything down just because football ended. That is a rumor that's absolutely not true. Are we going to make sure our student athletes and coaches and fans are safe? Sure we are. Are there going to be some changes? Is this a fluid situation? Absolutely. But there are plans to keep these extracurricular activities going, including athletics, because Mr. Golden, Dr. Webb, all of us at the district level, certainly those people who are doing the hard work at the schools, we understand the importance of extracurriculars. And I know you agree with that too.
Oh yeah, 100%. I talked to Mark Reeves at the TSSAA while we were up there, and he basically said as long as the schools systems basically across the state don't get closed down, then they don't feel like they can mandate or dictate or that not having sports, right? So as long as school systems are leaving it up to the individual school systems that they're going to be in, then they're not going to say no contest. So you're right. But it's like you said for a while now, as fans, as parents, as spectators, whatever, if the thing we can do to ensure that our young people get to have these wrestling seasons and basketball seasons is distance, and it's not that hard. I had it on for the first part of the show. Wear your flipping mask, man. It's not that hard, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what people have to do is they got to get away from the way they feel about it personally. I get lots of people wanting to give me information and research, and the next conversation is information and research totally the opposite. So here's what you and I know, and here's what we know as a district. You're supposed to wear a mask. You're supposed to stay away from one another. Please do those things so we can continue to have games with people in attendance. We want to make sure not only we have contests, we want people to be there.
That's right. Would you rather be there with a mask on or not be there at all? I'd rather be there with a mask on.
No doubt about it. Hey, Tate, let's talk state championship. We'll start with Friday night's 5A state championship. Summit High School 28, Oak Ridge 7. Really went the way that you and I thought it would go. I don't think this one, honestly, was as close as the score. Tate, it's the first team state championship for Summit. And by the way, today's gym, it's the second for the school. Now, unless you've looked at my notes, I want to see if you can guess who that is. Now, don't be cheating.
No, well, I already looked, but
okay, so
I don't want to steal your thunder. I would not have gotten it. No.
Jalea Grimes, 2016 girls wrestling state champion. So that was the only state champion they had individual. This is the first team state championship. And the thing that's so cool about this for me, and I was never fortunate enough to win a state championship, but I know this feeling. Coach Coleman's first year at Summit, 0-10. My first year ever coaching, 3-21. It makes you appreciate those teams that compete at the high level. And in a lot of ways, that's the way it ought to be. I mean, if you're rolling into a situation where you can win at a high level every year, well, good on you. But the reality of it is, I think sometimes maybe that can hurt you a little bit because you think maybe it's a little bit more about you than it really is. I think those years where you struggle make you better as a coach. It doesn't feel good at the time. And I know that 0-10 season didn't feel good to Coach Coleman, but man, does it make it feel even more special when you bring home that gold ball.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. He said Coach Melton told him that. They're standing out there on the field, on the turf at Tucker Field, and he says they're standing there holding a gold ball. We've come a long way from 0-10, haven't we, buddy? So I think it's very cool, and I know it was very special to Coach Coleman. He had a good job at Forest, was building that thing the right way. And a lot of people told him, "Don't take this job. You can't win at Summit." Well, and then he comes here and goes 0-10. Maybe you can't win, right? So, no, I think it's a great story. I'm happy for Coach Kirby and Mrs. Lamb because they hired Coach Coleman, who had only been a head coach for 1 year at Forest, at a smaller school, and then they come up. And I know there were some people that complained about that, right? And then they go 0-10, stood by him, never wavered, and I think it's a really cool story. And you're right, I haven't done it, you have, but I do think that makes you better when you have to struggle like that. You got to figure out ways to win, right? And they haven't always had the best players. They haven't always had great players, and it makes you become a better coach. Coach Coleman had to learn how to become an offensive play caller and an offensive coordinator. He's done that. Obviously did a very good job this year with it. And then with Coach Melton running the defense, I just think it's a really cool story. Yeah. Long way from 0-10, man.
Long way. Hey, first possession of the game, Summit, they do what Oak Ridge didn't need them to do. They drive down the field. Destin Wade punches it in with about 8 minutes left in the first. And really, they never look back. They get another stop on the second possession. They score again, extend the lead all the way out to 21-0 until Oak Ridge scored late in the half and also received the second half kickoff. Now, you and I were on the sidelines, and we had said, man, this momentum may be changing here. Oak Ridge scores, they get the ball back, but the second half was all about the defense. So if there were any thoughts that Oak Ridge, the Wildcats, were going to get back in the game, totally squashed by that Summit defense. Brady Pierce, unbelievable game. I know Destin was the MVP and deservedly so, but really it almost could have been 2 MVPs. Here's Pierce's numbers for the night. Rushing, 30 yards. Receiving, 88 yards and a touchdown. 6 tackles, a pick 6, and he's going to punt it 4 times for an average of 1.2. Not a bad night for Brady Pierce.
No, not a bad night. And you're right. You had to give the MVP to Destin Wade, and deservedly so. But you're right. Nobody would argue with Brady getting it. Coach Coleman's talked about him all year long. He's just a football player. You mentioned we were on the sideline. That interception return for a touchdown that he had, number one, talked to Coach Coleman about it after the game as well. That was something that he had seen. He knew it was coming. So that was a product of, one, him just having a knack for the ball and being a heck of a football player, but also film study, right? He knew it was coming. He broke on the ball, and then there was no doubt once he caught it, he had nothing but green grass. He was taking that thing to the house. I think the game was already over anyways, but that sealed it. And yeah, I forgot to check. I don't. If he was on kick coverage and return, then he never came off the field. I mean, he's fun to watch for sure.
Destin Wade, MVP, as we said, 101 yards on 14 carries, 2 touchdowns, 7 for 10 passing, 136 yards and a touchdown. And that defense, Coach Melton, the defense, I know you mentioned Coach Melton earlier, only giving up 145 yards, 24 of those rushing. So Oak Ridge really all night, not much of a chance. You know, something that did stand out to me in this game, and I'm not getting on the refs here about it, but something was up. 28 flags thrown, 25 that were accepted. Summit had 16 for 119 yards, Oak Ridge 9 for 64. So certainly in the second half in particular, it really made that game pretty ugly as it progressed. But ultimately, looked pretty good to Old Sparty. They didn't think it was ugly. again, coming out with that state championship 28-7.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I think that was part of the second half was you mentioned that that one touchdown drive they had towards the end of the first half. That's really the only drive they had. The defense was playing so well. I think Coach Coleman and the staff knew they just needed to not do something, stupid to get them back in the game turnover wise. And then with the flags, you're right. It almost became comical in the second half. How many times that yellow flag appeared. Not going to mention names, but you and I were standing next to a supervisor of TWSAA referees who said, "I can't watch any more of this," and he left. If that tells you anything. But yeah, I think that broke up the momentum a little bit, and also they knew, hey, this thing's in the bag. Our defense is playing so well, no turnovers, and just let's get this thing to the end of the fourth quarter and hoist that gold ball, which is exactly what they did. Destin, the thing that I'm so impressed with him all year long. Everybody knows what an athlete he is and just get the ball in his hands. But 7 for 10 passing, no interceptions. He really, that was something he had to work on this year. Not work on, get better at, right? And protecting the ball. And that's what he's done, man. He very few turnovers this year. I can't wait. I hate to say it because this one's just now over, but I can't wait to watch him next year.
Well, it was good to see Brother Keaton out there too, making some plays. Obviously disappointing for him that he wasn't healthy the entire year, but good to see him get out there and contribute as well. Mr. Football being announced this week. Certainly we think Mr. Wade's got a real shot to win that. Jake Brenningstool from Ravenwood also in with the shot. Summit does finish, Tate, 14-1 on the year. Oak Ridge 11-4. Just a dream season. And if you go back and think about, hey, maybe we were going to play, maybe we weren't going to play, for Summit to persevere and come out with the state championship, maybe even makes it more special.
Yeah. I don't think this one will ever be forgotten. And the cool thing is, went to Beach, as you well know, not an easy place to win. To Henry County, not an easy place to win. And then traveled to Cookeville and win on Friday night. So I don't think anybody can argue. They clearly were the best team in 5A.
No doubt about it. Brentwood fell to Oakland 33-56 the late game Saturday night, and it was the final game of the state championship. Oakland, obviously one of the best teams in the state. I did love the way that Brentwood fought the entire night. Obviously, we all know what Coach Crawford and his family been going through with his mom passing away. But they went through that one stretch that really was the difference. The Oakland scores to start the game, but then Brentwood answers. They answer with a grands out, Aaron Walton touchdown, one of 3 touchdowns on the night for Aaron. But the next few minutes really ended up being the difference. Oakland gets a kickoff return for a touchdown. Now it's 13-6. Brentwood fumbles the ensuing kickoff. Oakland scores. It's 21-6. Grands out throws an interception. Oakland scores again. It's 28-6. And I know it sounds easy, right? But if they clean some of that up, who knows? Maybe they hang around longer. Maybe Oakland gets nervous. But the big story of the night, Jordan James, MVP for Oakland. He rushed for 6 touchdowns, 226 yards. He did fall one short of tying the state championship record of 7 touchdowns, which was set by Jalen Hurd from Beach. But that start, or that segment of the game, and Coach Crawford talked about that, Tate, was just too much for that team to overcome because, let's face it, talent-wise, there was a difference.
Yeah, you knew you couldn't get down to them. It was going to be tough enough anyways without helping them. And you can't – in that game against that team, you can't turn the ball over, but you dang sure can't give up special teams. But give them credit. Those were some dang good athletes making those plays. But you're right. I think they knew they were going to have to score almost every time they touched the ball. Because Oakland was going to put up points too. What an offense that was. And I love the way they fought back, which, no surprise. 1, it's a Coach Crawford coach team. 2, that's what these guys are about. That's part of what makes Brentwood football. They play hard for each other. And Aaron Walton, what a performance. Guy's a heck of a player. Now it helps when you got Walker Merrill on the other side of you, and they got to honor him too, but what a performance he had. Doesn't make it any easier, but I think you just got beat by the best team in the state. I think they were probably the best team in any classification. Still a tough loss, but they're the best team in the state. I don't think anybody would argue that, would you?
No, not at all. Regardless of class, that's the best team. You mentioned Aaron Walton, that game he had 3 touchdowns receiving, 6 receptions, 164 yards. Luke Walters and Mac Hirschman, both had receiving touchdowns. And I'll tell you a bright side for Brentwood too. Kane Granzow, obviously 20 for 32, a couple of touchdown passes. Davis White has to come in for Cade there late. He goes 5 of 9, 124 yards and 2 touchdown passes. So they got a little bit of a peek into the future, which they also had in that first round playoff game.
Right.
Going to be tough to deal with. Walton's coming back. White will be the quarterback. So the future's still bright for Brentwood for sure.
Oh, no doubt about it. And they've got some good young ones coming too. But Davis White thing should not have been a surprise after what he did against Cane Ridge coming in on the 4th play of the game. You're right. And it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to look a little bit different, but that offense is going to be very potent next year. And I think I was trying to think about it as you were talking. I think with 2 touchdowns, I think Cade leaves Murray Lane with 106 total touchdowns. It's right under 110. I mean, when you really take a pause and think about that, what a career, man. I mean, those are big time numbers. And, it's been fun watching him the last 3 years, but even starting 3 years, even if you started 4 years, think about 106 total touchdowns.
Incredible. Total offense for the night, Oakland 554 yards, Brentwood 365. The stat that stands out to me besides the turnovers is the rushing yards, which, football, as you know, Tate's a line of scrimmage game. 468 yards versus 55 rushing yards. That tells you a lot about the big hogs up front on both sides of the ball. And that was a place where Brentwood, it was a noticeable difference. Not that those young men from Brentwood didn't battle and do what they needed to do. 365 yards of offense, pretty darn good. But Oakland just a little bit different than some other teams that Brentwood faced this year. And obviously they had faced Oakland earlier in the year. That game was 37-0. This was a lot different game than that. You knew Brentwood was part of that game. It wasn't like, even though Oakland ends up winning the game and dominates at some level, it wasn't like Brentwood wasn't a formidable foe.
No, yeah, you're right. And you mentioned it at the beginning, it was the big plays that got them. You look at the first downs, Oakland 21-17. That's not that off. Time of possession, 26-21. But those long runs, those big plays by Oakland, it's just, so hard to play catch up to a team like that. But you're right. You look at the first time they played, they only had 2 days to get ready for it. Tough, as you saw again last night, tough to get ready for that wing T offense with that type of athleticism on it in 2 days. Wanted to make sure that we came back and at the very least competed, and they dang sure competed.
Tate, now that we've wrapped up football, before we talk about how the pick'ems turned out, I know that'll be a part that you'll probably enjoy a little bit more than me, but what are your takeaways now that football's in the books, so to speak? Tell me what besides the obvious with COVID, right? This is like COVID season, 2020. What are some things you take away from the season? What are some things that impressed you? What are you looking forward to in the future?
Well, I think the number one thing is like we talked about, there were a lot of people who didn't even think we were going to have a season. Once they announced we were going to have a season, we won't make it 4 games. Well, we made it 15 games, and we had 2 teams still playing on the last weekend of the season. Had another one that was almost there, but I'm just so impressed with the way the coaches handled this. It's already tough enough. You look at a program like Brentwood, they've got over 100 young people on their roster, if you count the freshmen as well. And, I think with all the protocols and regulations we had in, and then with how this thing is so contagious, I think they did an unbelievable job. All of them. We already knew we had great head coaches in this district, but I thought that was very cool. We like to get on the TSSAA sometimes, and a lot of it deservedly so. But I also think that they did a great job. They never wavered on wanting to have it, and they had it and got through it. A lot of people said this is stupid. We're never going to get through it, and that wasn't true. It wasn't the case at all. And I don't think there's anybody who was there this weekend can tell me it wasn't worth having that season. Seeing those crowds, it was really, really cool. And shout out to you in your position and Dr. Webb and Mr. Golden for standing firm and believing in it, and then giving the coaches the support and the opportunity to do it, because it would have been easy to just say we're not going to do it. A lot of people did it, and you all did, and that's what I take away from it. And it also just goes to show, man, these young people need to be around each other. They need to be around these coaches. There's nothing quite like it, and I'm glad we were able to get it in.
Well, that's well said, Tate, about the importance of it. It was the famous UT president, maybe you'll probably know this name better than me, Johnson, maybe.
Joe Johnson.
Athletics, the university's like a house, and the front porch of the house is your athletic programs. And I certainly believe that from my spot.
Well, we got a pretty good looking front porch, if that's true.
No doubt about that. Tate, final thing this week, we'll talk about pick'ems. Dr. Qualls and yourself both go 2-0. You both picked the state champions. The fans and I went 1-1. We probably went with our hearts a little bit more than our heads on the 6A state championship, but I'm going to tell you, I don't regret that at all. If you want to do something great, you got to believe in it. You got to take a chance. Qualls finishes in dead last with 55 wins. The fans finish in third with 57. Tate, I had 60 wins and you ended up with 61. So there's no shame in that for me. I'm catching you. I don't know what it was last year. I feel like I have closed the gap on you a little bit. Next year is going to be my year.
No doubt about it. I can tell you this, in the previous contest, it was never a one game decision. So the way I look at that, that's almost kind of like getting beaten overtime, right? So I think it was as close as it could get. You were a very formidable opponent. And then, that guy in fourth place, I don't know why he keeps doing it, but that's okay. I'm glad he was here. And the fans, they were very close. So it's fun. But without a doubt, this was the closest competition we've had since we've been doing this. And so I gotta get my A game together. I gotta be better next year.
Well, Tate, I enjoyed it as always. Obviously, we're going to keep going with Sports Connection. We'll have some opportunities to be in person again. We'll do this virtual thing if we need to, but so appreciate what you do for the district, Tate. I know I say it, but I mean it when I say it. You're a big part of WCS athletics, and looking forward to that continuing, not only the rest of this year, but in the future as well.
Well, I appreciate it. And I feel the same way, man. I love being a part of WCS Sports Conference. It's easy to pull for, and something I'm very proud of being a part of too. So, and hey, again, congratulations to both Summit and Brentwood High. That's what you want to do. You want to be able to spend as many weeks together as you can. They got all 15 weeks together, and neither one of these teams will be forgotten anytime soon.
No doubt about that. Thanks again to Creed and Lance and Heather and the crew there at WCTV for sticking with us here through football. It's going to continue. Fans, we appreciate you joining us during this football season, and we know you're going to continue to join us, and we will definitely see you next time on Sports Connection.